Most parents are busy without realizing that. They are writing invisible lines on their children's lives. These are memories, emotions, and more importantly, an invisible structure that is silently shaping the ego, personality, and the person they will become in the future. Science has proven a truly astonishing number at this very moment. As you are hearing these words, the baby's brain is forming up to 1 million new neural connections every second. Try to imagine that speed. 1 million links every time the clock ticks a beat. And the most powerful, most potent thing to mold that intricate network is not expensive toys, not early education programs on television, and not expensive talent classes. What shapes a child's brain is you. Specifically, it is del normal. Small things that you perform every day, sometimes unconsciously and without calculation. There are things that will make you smile because you realize you did them right, and things that make you pause to reflect on what you accidentally did this morning. And especially, there is one thing at the end of this journey that will completely change how you perceive the final moments of your child's day. We will start with the first thing. Something seemingly simple but carrying the weight of a whole life. The way you call your child's name. Recall the last time you called your little baby's name. It could be when you called the child for a meal, or simply when you were sitting on the other side of the room, watching the child play and uttering that name affectionately. At that very moment, that sound is performing magic inside the child's brain. Researchers at the Harvard University Center on the Developing Child have described this as one of the earliest and most powerful forms of emotional imprinting in human development. When a baby hears their name, especially through the familiar voice of parents, with the characteristic tone and emotional vibrations you put into it, the child's brain does not just simply process sound. It simultaneously activates brain regions related to joy, safety, and emotional recognition. This is not just a matter of the infancy stage. In-depth studies on childhood memory indicate that the emotional imprint of how a name is called in the first year of life creates a self-identification template. This template will remain neurally active for many decades afterward, silently reminding the child of their own value. What does this mean? It means that every time you call your child's name with warmth, with a bright and loving tone, you are actually laying the first foundation stones for the child's self-esteem. The child's name, echoing in your voice, becomes the first piece of identity that the child possesses. However, science also points out an aspect that few parents notice, not only warmth, but also frequency. Babies who hear their names associated with positive tones many times a day throughout the first 12 months of life have significantly stronger frontal lobe development. This is the brain region responsible for emotional regulation, empathy, and self-control. Conversely, if the name is only used when needing to correct mistakes or for dry, functional purposes, this connection will be fainter. Therefore, call your child's name often. Call your child's name as if it were the most beautiful word you have ever uttered in this world. The second thing is equally important. Your face when the child sees you for the first time in the morning. In your home, every morning, a moment occurs that perhaps you have never considered a major event. The baby wakes up, tiny eyes open, and the first thing they do is search for your face. The expression that appears on your face in that moment, before you can consciously adjust it, is what is being recorded in the child's brain hard drive. Developmental psychologists call this the greeting response. Based on the classic research work of Edward Tronick at Harvard, infants, even just 2 months old, possess the ability to read the caregiver's face with astonishing accuracy. They don't just look, they are scanning every detail, from eyebrows and the corners of the mouth to your gaze. The purpose of this scanning is to find answers to the most instinctive questions. Is this world safe? Am I welcome here? Does my presence bring happiness to those around me? When you brighten up, when your face is radiant and says, "You are the most wonderful thing Mommy, Daddy has ever seen," without needing a single word, the baby's brain will immediately release a potent mix of neurochemicals, including oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. That is not a metaphor. It is the biochemical reaction of being seen and being loved. These warm morning greetings, if repeated consistently throughout the first year of life, are directly related to the formation of secure attachment. These children, when growing up, often have stronger social relationships, greater emotional resilience after events, and always maintain a higher baseline level of serotonin. Your face every morning is the emotional immune system that the child will carry throughout their life. The third thing, a rather sensitive topic in the digital age. Do you put your phone down when your child looks at you? I want you to listen to this not as a judgment or criticism, because we all understand how difficult modern life is. To accept it as pure scientific information. When a baby looks at you and sees you absorbed in the screen, their brain records a specific experience proven through the still face effect. Tronic's famous experiment showed when a baby looks at a caregiver and receives only a blank, unresponsive face, the stress hormone cortisol in the baby's body will spike and the heart rate will increase. The child will try to attract attention by reaching out, making sounds, or crying. If the lack of response continues, they will withdraw inside and find ways to self-soothe. The important thing here is that the baby cannot distinguish between a parent who is emotionally absent due to depression and a parent who is simply scrolling through social networks. The neurological result on the brain is exactly the same. These micro-ruptures in attunement, if repeated thousands of times in the first year of life, will create a model of immensely negative influence. Conversely, each time you choose to put the phone down to meet your child's eyes, you are completing a serve and return cycle. Harvard has identified this as perhaps the single most important experience for healthy brain development. No one asks you to be 100% perfect all the time, but each time you choose your child's eyes over the phone screen, you are creating positive vibrations that echo until many years later in your child's maturity. The fourth thing brings us to the most primal sound, how you react when your child cries. An infant's cry is one of the most powerful sounds in human biology. It is designed to trigger an immediate stress response in adults. And how you respond to that cry is one of the decisions with the greatest consequences. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, pioneers in attachment theory, spent many decades studying this interaction. A 30-year study, one of the most massive works of developmental science, showed that the language, environment, and emotional feedback in the first 3 years of life are the strongest predictors of a child's future. By age 3, there has been a clear differentiation, a dry, null, million-word gap. Children living in a rich language environment and receiving positive feedback will hear up to 30 million more words than other children. But remember, it's not just the quantity of dry words, but the feedback. The most valuable words are those that respond to what the baby is doing, looking at, or trying to communicate. When you follow your child's gaze and name the thing the child is interested in, or respond to the baby's babbling as if the two of you are having a deep conversation, you are performing contingent talk. This is the most powerful form of language input. Your child is listening to every word, and the child's brain is building a language system and a coherent way of thinking to serve the child for a lifetime. Don't hesitate to tell your child about everything around them, because every word you say is a seed for future intellect. Finally, we come to the 10th thing, the most sacred moment of the day. The moment you hold your child before they fall into sleep. No matter what habit your family has, breastfeeding, gentle rocking, lullabies, or just a quiet hug, the moment of transition from a state of wakefulness to sleep is when the baby is in a state of the deepest neural openness. Science calls this the hypnagogic state. In an entire day, this is the most powerful window to encode emotional memories. Everything the baby feels during this time, the warmth from your skin, the whispered tone, the familiar scent, the heartbeat, and the steady breathing of parents, are all remembered with extraordinary depth. We know that sleep is the process of memory consolidation, and the final emotional inputs before sleep will be the last things the brain processes before it begins the work of rearranging all the experiences of the day. The meaning of this is truly beautiful. The reassurance in your arms is not just a peaceful end to a long day. It is what the baby will carry into dreams. It is what the child's brain will store and keep like a treasure. Studies from the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child have confirmed the consistent emotional quality during the transition to sleep is the factor most closely related to a child's long-term internal sense of security. Not toys, not extra classes, and not development milestones, aligned precisely day by day. It is your warmth in the darkness, your loving presence when the child needs to feel safest, that stays with the child the longest and deepest. So, next time you feel like you are doing repetitive and meaningless tasks, smile. Because you are building a world, bit by bit, inside that tiny soul. Has your baby ever had a reaction that surprised you? A moment where they seemed to understand your thoughts in a way you didn't expect? Please share your story in the comments section. I am always here to listen and accompany you on this miraculous journey.